September in my reading journal was apparently a month of romance for me, and it was a super mixed bag. I read the highest rated book that I have read so far this year according to my rating scale, and I also read some books that made me go, eh. I'm moving into a traveler-sized journal for my reading journal in October, so let's try setting up some spreads for that as well as dedicated spreads for my October reading challenge, the Bewitched Book Challenge. Hi, my name is Erin. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. September is the last month that will fit in this lovely little journal, big journal actually. This one's a B5 from Archer and Olive. We're going to jump straight into the annual trackers at the beginning of the book here. I did this update around about mid-month, so I hadn't finished all of my reading yet at this stage. We'll come back and completely fill that out very soon, but for now, let's update this list of all of the books that I have read so far this year. It is numbered to help me keep on track with my reading goal for the year, and I'm coordinating with my Storygraph stats just to make sure I have everything correct. I read a lot of contemporary romance this month. Apparently that was just what was available to me. It's kind of what was chosen for my book club. It's what was available through my library and my library holds that became available, so that's kind of where I landed for most of September. It honestly felt like I didn't read very much in September, but I did. I still finished 7 books, so I suppose I read enough. We'll come back and fill out the stats much later in the video, but for now let's update the goal page. Storygraph says that I'm on track to reach my goal for the year, so that's good, but I'm about to go on holiday, so I think I'm gonna get behind. We'll see how we go. Also adding Where the Library Hides to my anticipated reads page, because this is the follow-up to What the River Knows, and I'm looking forward to reading this one. I also have an update to make to my series tracker. I have finished the Lovelight series by B.K. Borison. The most recent one that came out was the last in the series, and we'll talk about that a bit later on, but it felt so bittersweet crossing this series off my series tracker. This here is my monthly reading tracker that's within my September pages, and I've picked some colours that go with my theme, and I'm colouring in these squares in such a way that they demonstrate how long it took me to read a particular book. And I'm using my handy dandy star rating stamp as an indicator of the books that I have finished, so I'm not putting the star rating stamp on this page unless I have finished that book. Because I didn't finish some of the books from my library holds. One of them I ended up just returning without reading because I just did not have time to read books with my eyeballs, you know? I was having to rely on audio quite a bit because I've been a busy gal. You'll see on the progress tracker at the top there with this kind of brown beige pen, this is Business Casual, which is my top rated book of the month, and in any other kind of circumstance I probably would have read this really, really quickly, but I just did not, unfortunately, have the time to sit down and do that, so I had to take my time with it, which is not a bad thing. Let's move on to the first of the review pages for this setup. The first one we're going to do here is for Funny Story by Emily Henry. Sort of somewhat in tandem with Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I started setting these up at Sticker Hangs, which is a stationery social night that I go to, and then realized I'd forgotten my star rating stamp and my core pile stickers, and I didn't have kind of the stuff available that I wanted to use to make these setups, so I just stopped and I thought I'll finish those when I get home. I waited so long in the library queue for Funny Story that the moment it became available, I was like, it's on, cancel all other plans, I'm listening to this audiobook over the next couple days. I really like Emily Henry. I haven't found all of her books to be an absolute hit for me, but I do really, really love Book Lovers and I really love Beach Read. Happy Place wasn't kind of a super big hit for me. I was like, about it. So I was very excited that Funny Story was an excellent time for me. I really loved this book. Our main character here is an introverted librarian called Daphne. Her fiancé breaks up with her a few weeks before her wedding day because he's realized he's in love with his best friend. You know, the female best friend that he's always assured her that he could never think of her that way? Yeah, that one. Daphne is left high and dry, and she ends up out of necessity moving in with the ex of the girl that her former fiancé is now dating. His name is Miles, and we love him. And in a moment of weakness, Daphne tells her ex that she and Miles are now dating, and so they have to fake date to keep up the charade. This book has all of my favorite tropes. It is so much fun. I love fake dating. I love it so much. But something Emily Henry does really well in her books that I really admire her for is depictions of female friendships that aren't kind of reductive and just turning the best friend character into a quirky little thing for entertainment. And the friendship that Daphne builds with one of her co-workers through this story I thought was really beautifully done because it's quite difficult to make new friends in your 30s. And Daphne has to work really hard to be vulnerable and put herself out there and chase this friendship, and it's very meaningful to her, so I really enjoyed that. I wouldn't go so far as to say that this beats Book Lovers for me, but I do think this is very strong Emily Henry and I do recommend it. Also, I will never give you spoilers in the voiceover of this video, but if you read my review, you may find something spoiled for you, so just thought I'd let you know. Moving on now to Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I have just finished the series of these ones. This is the first one, but I read them backwards because library holds. That's sometimes just how it goes. So I did kind of know how this story was going to play out, but don't we always, when we read a romance, don't we always kind of know that they're going to end up together? I guess we do. Something to know about Abby Jimenez books is that there are always going to be very complicated family dynamics going on here, and I sometimes find them a bit stressful because the female main characters never really seem to know what they want or seem to be willing to do anything about making their own lives better. It's starting to frustrate me. I think I'm a little Abby Jimenez out, to be honest. I've read a lot of her books very close together. I also forgot to do the score for my funny story book back here, so I'm just flipping back to that very quickly. Mitsu's helping me out, my little kitty cat. Thank you, Mr. Mitsu. I gave Funny Story 7.7 on the Corpal rating system, which means that I'm giving it 4 1/4 stars. This is not my original rating system. Lovely G from the channel Book Roast came up with it because she's a genius. I will leave her video linked in the description in case you want to find out how it works because I don't feel like I explain it especially well. The acronym CORPAL stands for Characters, Atmosphere, Writing, Plot, Intrigue, Logic, and Enjoyment. So you give every category a rating out of 10, add up the final total out of 70, and then divide that total by 7 to get your number that corresponds to the star rating score. Back to Abby Jimenez and Part of Your World here. This one is dual point of view, if I remember correctly. It's been a few weeks since I read it. The main character, the female main character, Alexis, is a doctor and she has a lot of family pressure on her. She meets a guy when she's on her way home from a funeral in a small town bar and is like, he's a bit of all right. She goes home with him. She's like, I never do this. I never do this. And he's now kind of obsessed with her. And she's kind of obsessed with him, but he's younger than her and she feels like that's somehow inappropriate, even though they're both grown adults and are capable of expressing their feelings to each other. It was cute, it was fluffy, it was frustrating, I tore my hair out a little bit, but I did enjoy it. I wouldn't say don't read it, I just feel like I need a little break from Abby Jimenez now. Once again, forgot to give it a rating though, so we've moved on to Business Casual by B.K. Borison, who is an author I will never need a break from. I love this woman's work so much. FYI, I will try to link to as much of the stationery that I'm using in this video as I possibly can in the description, but there is a character limit and I do a lot of different stuff in reading journal videos, so some stuff might miss out. If there's anything that you want to know what it is that I haven't linked to, please just ask. Business Casual is the last book in the Lovelight series, and when I started this series, it was an independently published Kindle Unlimited indie author kind of a deal, and it has since then been picked up and traditionally published, and that makes me so happy for this author because she is incredible. But it did mean the wait for this book was really long because I read the first 3 when they were free and available on Kindle Unlimited, and then I had to wait until this one was properly released into the world by a publisher. And I actually reread all of the books in between times because I just missed them so much, and I am not a huge rereader. I'm going to keep telling you about Business Casual while we fill out the Corpal rating system for Part of Your World. All of the books in the Lovelight series take place in a small town called Inglewild. I believe it's a fictional town, unfortunately, and I think it's supposed to be in Maryland. By the way, Part of Your World got 7 on the Corpal rating system, which makes it a 4-star read. Each of the Lovelight books and the couple that book focuses on are the focus of a different season. So Stella and Luca in book 1 are winter, Evie and Beckett in book 2 are spring, Layla and Caleb in book 3 are summer, which is funny because that's my favorite and I hate summer. And then we have Charlie and Nova in book 4 and they are finishing up the season cycle with autumn. Funnily enough, Charlie is a man in finance with a trust fund, 6'5", blue eyes, and Nova is a burgeoning tattoo artist and entrepreneur starting her small-town tattooing business. And they get into a bit of a friends with benefits situation and chaos ensues, and it is so much fun. I can't recommend it enough. It is so warm. These books are quite spicy. My friend Rachel, I think, put it the best. She said when she started this book, it felt like coming home, and I think that is the case for all of the Lovelight books. Look at the ratings I'm giving these. This one is getting 60 out of 70, which works out to 8.57, which makes it a 4 3/4 star read, which is about as close as I have ever gotten to 5 stars with the Corpal rating system. This is actually the highest rating I have ever given a book with this system, and I have been using this rating system all year. Is this the book that's going to dominate the right side of my broken book bracket spread? Probably. I'm actually kind of so sad that this series is over now, but I am very much looking forward to B.K. Borison's next book, First Time Caller. Can't wait. Before I could move on to another review, I had to print some book covers. I like to do 4 at a time. I love my little HP sprocket for printing book covers. I have a short about that. I'll pop it in the description in case you want to watch that and find out how I do it. I'd left a gap for the book cover for my standout book from August, so I wanted to jump in and put that in there. That's A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faisal. And then onward to the review page for The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I believe this is their most recent. Christina Lauren is actually 2 people. It's Christina and Lauren, and they write together, which I think is how they're so prolific. They have a lot of books. This one was my Literary Ladies book club read for the month of September, and it was an interesting one. It was kind of similar a little bit to The Unhoneymooners in the tropical paradise holiday kind of vibe way, but it was also quite different. Anna and Liam, or West, our 2 main characters, arranged a little marriage of convenience in their college days in order to get access to subsidized housing. But Anna's a bit of a space cadet and never actually signed their divorce papers, so 5 years later, they're still married, and Liam's family actually think that it's real. They're one of those super rich families that don't have to even consider money ever because they just have so much of it. And Liam's sister is getting married on a private island in Indonesia, and he needs his wife to show up with him, so he actually pays Anna to be his date for this wedding. It's a very interesting twist on fake dating because they have already known each other for a little while, but not really, and they're married, but they've never lived together. And Anna's kind of a crass creature. She's very abrasive, so Liam's family just really don't know what to do with her. It's quite funny. The whole being paid to act as his wife thing could have been fraught with some creepiness in there, but it actually didn't ever go to a not wholesome place. I feel like you're really in good hands with Christina Lauren, like they know what they're doing. They've written so many books. But I think this is around the time that I started to notice that I've been feeling kinda about most of the books that I've been reading lately, exception Business Casual, but I was kinda about the fact that it took me a really long time to read because I didn't have time to read it. I don't know if it's because I'm a little stressed lately because I've had a lot to do, or the fact that I've just read so many books now that everything is kind of starting to blur into one, like there's a lot of similarities across a lot of stuff. Maybe I need to be reading in different genres and getting some new stimulation from that, or maybe I just need a holiday. I don't know, but I just haven't been having much connection with the books I've been reading lately. I'm still giving this one a pretty good rating though. It came out with 49, which is 7 on the Corpile system, which makes it 4 stars. I did my reading journal updates in 2 sessions over the course of the month, so we have flashed forward to the end of the month, actually the very beginning of October, now that we're setting up the rest of the stuff that you're seeing. I've got some more books to add to my overall books I've read this year list tracker thingy. I'm going to run out of room on this soon, but that's okay, because once I fill up this page, I'm just going to continue it in my new reading journal. Because this one sadly didn't have enough pages to get me past September, so I'm moving into a traveler size journal for the rest of the year, so you'll see that a little bit later on. I've done something probably a little bit silly considering I'm hosting a Halloween-themed reading challenge, which is start my spooky season reading early, but I also have a good reason for that, and that's because I'm going to be traveling through the second half of October, and I know from experience the last time I traveled that I don't get a lot of reading done unless I'm on a long flight. So the start and the end of the trip, I'll get some reading done, but the rest of it, probably not so much. I was updating my goal page here, and then I remembered I'd set up a new goal page in my new reading journal. This is her, the cute little sweetie that I'm using for the rest of the year. So I thought I would just go ahead and populate this since I have the goal page open as a reference, but I should have started from the beginning. I tried to jump in halfway through and I did it a little wrong, so that's okay, we can fix it. But I actually really like this as a goal tracker with the books kind of grouped together by color for the month that I read them in. I like the old goal tracker and it was working, but I like this one more. And I do have a video showing the setup of this new traveler's size reading journal on my channel already, so if you want to check that out, there is a link in the description. Something about colouring in book spines rather than just colouring in a box on the page makes me feel like I'll be much more motivated to try and actually reach my reading goal than I am with my old tracker, which is kind of funny. Anyway, I've fixed where I coloured some in wrong. Thankfully, you can put blue over apricot pretty easily. Let's go back to the journal that I'm still working in, and we'll go back to where we're up to on the September trackers here, because I have some updating to do. I typically need 2 of each book cover because I put one on the review page and one here on this monthly tracker page, so I try to make sure that I'm printing only the ones I'm going to use. Sometimes I get a bit excited and I print the ones for my library holds or some books that I think I might want to read, and then I don't. And the HP Sprocket paper is not the cheapest, so I don't like to waste it where I can, so I think I'm going to have to start just making sure I'm only printing the covers for the books that I'm actually reading. Although that makes a maybe next or a TBR page a lot less exciting, doesn't it? I am considering switching over to just printing my book covers on sticker paper with my home printer, rather than this little guy, to give me a bit more flexibility, but that's a next year Erin problem. We've moved on here to the next spread for a book, and I'm doing double page spreads because as much as I'm going to run out for the year for this book, I do still have some pages left over, so I thought I have space to be a bit generous, even if they aren't. Usually I only do a double page spread if I really, really, really love a book, but these ones are just going to get it regardless, you know? This spread is going to be for A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch by Sarah Hawley. This is the second in the Glimmer Falls series, and I really wanted to get into my spooky season vibes, but this wasn't the book to start with, and I probably knew that going in. I read the first book last year and I was like, you know, I've been saying that a lot. I've been very like, And for me, this book was also very, It's a rom-com with magic, but this one's really silly. I feel like these books are silly, and that's fine. It's just not what I want. Our 2 main characters in this one are called Astaroth and Calladia, and as you might expect from the title, Astaroth is a demon and Calladia is a witch. And kind of a pick-me, if you ask me. I don't want to spoil too much about book 1 in case you haven't read that one and would like to, and I do have friends who really love these books, so it's probably just me that's kind of like a bit lukewarm on them. But in the previous book, Astaroth is a baddie. He's like a bad guy. I don't want to tell you why or why everybody dislikes him so much, but it is a big shock to everybody when Calladia is like, hey, I think he's like all right now. My spread here is a bit of a dog's breakfast because I'm kind of just going for whatever witchy things I have, but also I didn't really enjoy the book that much, so I feel like when I don't love the book all that much, I don't put as much effort into making its page pretty. If you are doing the Bewitched Book Challenge, this one might be a good choice because it fits some of the book bingo prompts, and also you'd get extra points for it because the first book is on our list of recommended reads that my page majors, my wonderful book club, put together, and you also get bonus points for reading any of the sequels of those books as well, so you would get extra points for reading this one in October. I also have to give a shout out to the female main character's voice narrator for this one on the audiobook because she did a actually fairly solid New Zealand accent, and I was very impressed because Australian and New Zealand accents in audiobooks are usually way off unless they've got an actually Australian or actually Kiwi voice actor to do that part. So mad props to this narrator. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than others I've heard. So on the Corpile rating system for this one, I gave it a whopping 4.86, which made it a 3-star read. Not terrible, not absolutely unreadable, but not one of my favorites either. I don't know. If there are more in the series, I probably shouldn't read them. Just a little bit too silly for me. Speaking of silly, the next book we're going to do a spread for was exceptionally silly, but first of all, I did not finish Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, although I am still reading it, and I did not even start Butcher and Blackbird. My hold expired, I didn't get to it, so maybe another time, maybe never. Let's talk about another really silly book. This one is our Page Majors read for the month of September. It is Playing with Fire by R.J. Blaine. And if I thought A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch was silly, this completely breaks the silly meter. It is off the charts. Ridiculous. And I actually don't mean that in a bad way. I think this book has a lot of potential. I think it just needs a really, really heavy edit, or maybe a few rounds of really heavy editing. This one's an urban fantasy set in New York, and it has a really interesting world. I don't think the world building was done especially well, but I think that the ideas had merit. Bailey, the main character, is someone who's immune to essentially magical poisons, which puts her in a really interesting position of being someone who's not really particularly educated or adept at things, but is frequently called in by the police to do like crime scene cleanup because she's the only person that being around these magical substances won't kill or alter in some kind of horrible way. Like, that sounds like such a great concept for a book, but I'm actually really glad I did this one on audiobook because I had to speed it up a lot to get through it. The writing was very, it just kept going in circles. They had a lot of really unnecessary conversations. It just felt like a really self-indulgent rant from the author, and I'm sure they had a good time writing it, and it's not a terrible read, but oh my god, it really could do with some editing. It really, really needs it. 4.14 for me on the Corpal rating system, which as a star rating gives it 2 3/4. I think there are a bunch of these books. I think there's a whole series. It's called A Magical Romantic Comedy with a Body Count or something like that. And I'm sure they get better as they go along, but I will not be reading any more from this series. I am really looking forward to our Page Mages chat about this one though, because it's such a complicated story, like it has a lot going on, so it'll be a good one to have a chat about. If you're not familiar with my Page Mages book club, it's a little book club that I run through the membership program here on YouTube, so the highest tier of my membership is the Page Mages book club, and you get access to a private Discord server, and we read one book every month and we have a little chat about it at the end of the month in a Discord video call, and it's just the most fun. I'll pop a little QR code up on the screen in case you're interested in finding out more. There's also a join link in the description where you can find out what the different tiers and prices are. And all of our Page Mages books are suggested by a member of the Page Mages community. Shout out to Marie for suggesting that one for us, and the book we're doing next month is actually my very first time choosing a book for the Page Mages book club myself. I've got one more book that I need to set up a little review page for here, and that is Hooked by Emily McIntyre. This must have been one of those Audible daily deals or something at one point, because it was already in my Audible library and had been sitting there for a while, and none of my library holds were available and I needed something to listen to, and I went, yeah, sure, we'll do that. I didn't know anything about it besides it being supposedly a Peter Pan dark retelling, and I went in kind of blind and it was fine. Is that my review of everything this month? Is just, it was fine. It seems that way. Look, I'm not a dark romance girly. I am someone who works really hard to live my life as a good person, and when I read about these stories where women fall in love with these awful, awful men, I'm like, what, honey, what are you doing? All of the characters in this one are inspired by the Peter Pan characters, so our main character is Captain James Hook, except that he's a mob boss kinda instead of a pirate. Which, like, look, honestly not dissimilar career paths. And sweet little innocent Wendy stumbles into his bar, and of course he's obsessed with her because her dad is Peter Pan, and he's like, I will make her fall in love with me, and I will use her to get to her father, and then I will kill her father. And you're like, where are we supposed to like this man? I'm sorry, show me where I'm supposed to like him. As much as I really don't enjoy the moral, not even grey, the moral blackness of the character of Hook, the story was interesting enough to keep me reading, as much as I wouldn't say I wasn't enjoying it. I just was, again, it's the disconnection thing, right? I'm just not feeling like books mean anything to me at the moment. If you have a recommendation for a book that'll actually make me feel something, please leave it down below, because I'm happy to sob my way through a book. I'm totally okay with that. I need to feel something. I know dark romance is a very popular genre and that a lot of people get a lot of value out of it. I'm just not that person. So if you loved this book, please don't feel like this is a personal slight to you. It's okay for us to like different things. And I also totally understand liking something in a book that you would never stand for in real life. Like, that's totally fine too. I'm also someone who really likes a book that is written beautifully, like the language that is used is written really beautifully. I think Vari McFarlane is an excellent rom-com example of this. But this one, the writing felt pretty clumsy to me, so that's just my observation. I don't know if this was an indie book that's since been picked up or what, but you know, just listening to myself talk about this, I'm thinking this is a sign that I need to go and read some Trent Dalton, because I need some beautifully written, heart-wrenching content, apparently. Probably won't go with my Halloween book challenge at all, but maybe I just need to do it for myself. Sometimes it's really hard to rate a book like this because I'm like, it's too much to think about. I don't want to think that hard about it. Anyway, this one came out with 32 out of 70, which gives it 4.57, which makes it a 3-star book for me. Got to fill out my progress tracker here with the books that I have not yet finished for the month. The long pink bar there is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which I'm really enjoying. I just am reading it on ebook, so it's going to take me forever. My library hold on that one has actually expired, but I put my Kindle on airplane mode so it won't get returned. And the extra little purple square is The Bell Witches by Lindsay Kelk, which I've just started as well. I flipped back to my book club spread here because I want to put Mort by Terry Pratchett down here on the Page Mages book club square for October. This is the book that I have chosen for us to read for October, and it will also get you extra points in the Bewitched Book challenge if you're joining in. I will talk about the challenge a little bit more in a minute. But for now, that's all I can do in my big B5 journal, so let's move into the new little traveler size. I really thought switching from such a huge journal to such a small one was going to be a challenge for me, but I'm really, really enjoying it so far. I'm really loving using this tiny little journal. Let's set up some October tracking spreads, but we're going to start out with the cover page, and I'm using these cards that came with the STICKII Midnight Tarot Advent Calendar. They were actually supposed to just conceal the sticker sheet that was the actual Advent item, but I love these so much and they're the perfect size for a traveler's journal, so let's just use these as the basis of my cover spread because I really don't have to do much besides that. It would have been so perfect if the one with the 10 on it was one of my favorites, because that obviously 10 for October would have been really good, but the ones I've ended up going for are 7, which is July, and 12, which is December, if we were using that as the system. So didn't really work out. I'm going to cover that. I'm going to just put my October heading over the top. I also toyed with the idea of colouring in these lovely cards, but I thought I would probably ruin them. Maybe I'd not like them as much after that, so I decided to leave them as they are. I could always come back and add colour later if I decide I want to do that. And I went for a really lazy colour scheme to go around this with some washi tape. I'm just using orange and purple because that is incredibly Halloween, is it not? Although the shades I'm using are fairly pastel versions of those, so maybe it is still a little twist on a classic Halloween, I don't know. I got these letter stamps from JOURNALSAY recently, and I feel like because they have that little bit of floral decoration, if you stamp them in black, they kind of take on a bit of a witchy vibe. They kind of can skew a little bit that way depending on what you use them with, so I thought they'd be really good for this cover, but I'm not very good at stamping them straight, so I'm going to cut them all out individually and have them just be like their own little separate moment. And I stamped them straight onto sticker paper, so they're really easy to get down on the page. I could not pass up the opportunity to use some of the Halloween washi tape sticker sets from the washi tape shop for this, so I'm going to use this one with the cat potions. It's so cute. This is from the Midnight Mischief set, and I'm teaming it up with some of the stickers from the Haunted House set as well. They're kind of big, so it was a little challenging to incorporate them without kind of going a bit too crazy, but I think it worked pretty well. I'm still getting used to this size journal. The next page is for my progress calendar, where I add those little colourful lines of how long I've been reading a single book for. I thought I'd go back to a pretty classic layout for this one this time because I don't have a huge amount of room to play with. Usually in my B5 I would put this on one page and then the facing page would be all the book covers with the ratings, but that's clearly not going to work in this journal, and because I've only got 3 months to fill it up, I'm totally okay with being generous about how many pages I assign for specific purposes in this journal. I really want to finish it for the end of the year, so this one's going to be just the calendar spread, and we'll put the book covers and the ratings on a different spread. I've made all of the calendar boxes 4 dot grid spaces tall by 4 dot grid spaces wide here, and left an extra space at the top above those for me to put the number for each day of the month. That way there should be still plenty of room for me to track my reading through the month, but also still plenty of room to decorate, which I love.
Thank you.
progress calendar is all set up and ready to go, so let's turn the page, and I'm going to dedicate these 2 pages to my Bewitched Book challenge for October. I printed out the challenge rules, the bingo, and the achievement levels on some sticker paper so they would fit in the journal, and these are available as a downloadable printable resource if you'd like. I have them linked in a Dropbox folder for you in the description. You should not need to join the folder, you should just be able to download the stuff, so you don't need to send me a request, you can just save it straight from there. I have a video explaining the challenge already on my channel, so I will link to that, but for the kind of Cliff's Notes version, it's a very chill, laid-back reading challenge for October. There is a bingo that you can use to find common tropes from rom-coms and horror books that are kind of spooky season themed. There are points attached to the bingo board squares so that you can keep track of how many points you have earned, and there are some ways that you can earn bonus points as well, which are reading a book from the suggested book list from the page majors. You don't have to read those books, they're just purely optional there for some inspiration if you need it, and also reading the page majors official book of the month, which is Mort, as I mentioned, by Terry Pratchett. The challenge is now also on Storygraph, so I'll have that linked for you in the description. Wow, so many links in the description for this video, it's wild. And if you need to refer back to any of these resources at any time, you can always find them in my Instagram stories as a story highlight, and also on the community posts tab page on my YouTube channel too. I'm just going through the book bingo and assigning a colour to each of the squares with my original book bingo as a reference so that I'm getting them right, because these are worth different points, 3 points for the dark blue, 1 point for the purple, 2 points for the green. And the way I'm setting this spread up, and I learned this from experience doing lovely Jashi and Monica and Rachel's Goober Readathon earlier in the year, I want to have the reference of the books that apply to the book bingo somewhere very close to the book bingo so that I have all that information easy to see at a glance. So the left page here is going to be where my book covers and my star ratings and my core pile ratings and also the reference to the bingo board go over here on the left. I don't think I'm going to need a huge amount of space for that for this month because, as I mentioned, I'm traveling, probably not going to be reading as much as I would maybe like. It was probably a bad time to host a reading challenge, to be honest, but we're rolling with it. It's done now. I don't think I'm going to need more space than this, but if I do, I will get creative and I will find a way. Just going to begin populating my October Reads page here with The Bell Witches and Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, because I have started both of those books, so there is a solid chance that I will also finish them. Really enjoying both so far. And I'm going to set up my Page Majors book club spread here next. I'm going to get creative on this. I haven't done any book reviews in this journal yet, so this is my first time trying to really approach how I might want to do that. And I'm adding in a little Dutch door here to give myself some more space, because when we do our Page Majors reads, I like to come up with some questions that we can all answer to kind of guide the discussion when we talk about the book, and that means I need a decent chunk of space. So I'm thinking the first half of the spread, where the front of the Dutch door is sitting, is going to be the stats and the book cover and anything else there, kind of just my thoughts quickly. And then the other side is going to be where I put all of the questions and answer them for myself as well. I am going to be really ambitious here though and use a full-size sprocket print of the book cover just because I want to do that. It's a really fun cover, there's a lot of detail on it, and I didn't want that to get lost, so I'm including the whole thing. Also printing another full-size book cover to go back in my Literary Ladies book club spread in this journal, which is back in the kind of beginning of the journal pages. I have actually suggested this one as our October book for the Literary Ladies because I read it for the Page Majors a couple months ago, and I thought it would be the perfect kind of spooky season read. We needed a break from romance, so this one got chosen, which is really exciting, and also extra exciting because it means that I can still join in the discussion without having to read the book this month because I've already read it. I have forgotten a really important page here, but I am going to realize that later. We haven't done reading stats yet for October, but When I remember, don't worry, we'll come back and we'll add that in. I just didn't realize it yet at this point. I wanted to also add Ask for Andrea to the Literary Ladies page over here, so let's pop that book cover down. And now let's do my reading stats for September, which is what reminded me that I hadn't done them yet for October. I hadn't set up this page. I read a total of 7 books in September, 2,318 pages, and it took me an average of 8 days to finish a book. Of those books, most of them had 300 to 499 pages, 86% of them. The rest had less than 300. I read only 14% with my eyeballs, digital books. The rest were audio. That is just what I had time for this month. Yes, audiobooks are reading. Don't at me. My average rating was 3.68. I think probably business casual was really helping to bring it up there. I had a bit of trouble working out my library versus bought this time because I did read that one book that I think was an Audible daily deal that was probably free, but I couldn't exactly remember. So I ended up calling it like a 50-50 split because I just wasn't completely sure. And to the surprise of absolutely no one, my standout book for the month is Business Casual by B.K. Borison. I don't want to print an extra book cover just for that one because I don't have sort of 4 to do in a go, so I'm just going to write Business Casual there, and we'll fill that in with the book cover later, much like we did for Tempest of Tea in this video. Business Casual, being my standout book, is also the one that's going to go into my book bracket back at the beginning of this journal, but my book bracket is broken. I'm not actually sad about it. I think it's kind of funny. I probably won't do a book bracket next year because I just don't really enjoy it all that much, but if we compare it with the rating of the book that is currently in number 1, Check and Mate, finally, this is probably going to be the book that completely destroys the other side of the book bracket, which is really funny. Now let's add a reading stats page to my October ones because I forgot, and that does mean it's going to have to go after the Page Majors book, and that's not where I would typically like to place it, but we're working with what we've got. I've already filled in those other pages, so it is what it is. In the B5 journal, I was able to make the book stats page just like a page of its own. I'm going to do a double page spread in the traveler size because obviously there is a lot less page real estate to be working with on a single page here. Honestly, I think the double page spread in the travelers is actually pretty much the same as, if not a little smaller than, a single page in the B5, so it's a big change. We're going to do the written stats on the left page and the pie charts on the right. And somehow I managed to get a little smudge of my ink pad on my hand that I have then smudged all over the page, which kind of sucks. I also stamped the D backwards. Whoops. The white paint marker is coming to the rescue for both of those. It is the best thing ever for fixing mistakes. I'm just going to color over the smudges on the page and pretend they never happened. I've been really enjoying the most recent iterations of my reading stats page from the B5, so I'm just going to copy it straight out of September, so I'm tracking the exact same things: the number of books completed, number of pages read, the average time it takes me to finish a book, the average rating, the page number, format, how many are library versus bought books, the standout book for the month, and the genres. All of these are things that I've taken directly from the Storygraph reading stats that you can get at the end of every month anyway. You just kind of filter by month and it shows you your stats for these things. So I've deliberately taken them from those so that it's easy for me to get access to the things that I want to track stats for. If you're someone who also keeps a reading journal, I'm really curious about what stats, if any, that you like to track in your journal, especially if they're different to mine. I've actually ended up with extra space, which I didn't expect, so I'm going to fill those gaps in with some more of my stickers from the Washi Tape Shop sticker sets, and then we are all set for October to plan for my reading, and we're also all set for September. Let's have a little flip through everything that I read in September and those October pages to see how it all flows together. Please make sure you let me know what your standout book was for September. I always want to hear your recommendations. And if you're joining in the Bewitched Book Challenge, I would love to see any pages and spreads that you do for that too. It makes me so happy to see that in people's reading journals. I hope the month of October is an excellent reading month for you, and I am hoping it's an excellent reading month for me too. I feel like I need to read some good books. Here's a little look at how many pages are left over in my B5 journal. There are still a handful, but it wasn't enough for a full month, so that is why we have retired that one and moved into this little journal that I'm loving so much. It honestly has been so much fun so far that I kind of want to do traveler-sized journals for everything now for next year when I was planning to go really big. I'm probably not going to do that, but it's an interesting idea to entertain all the same. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, make sure you leave me a spooky themed emoji in your comment so I know that you watched the whole thing. My reading journal is always my favorite journal to work in, so it really means the world to me that you like to watch me mess around with this journal too. So thank you for being here, thank you for watching. And I'll pop some links up on the screen in case you'd like to continue watching. If you missed the initial setup for this new little traveler size reading journal, that's on the top there, and underneath that is a link to a playlist of all of my reading journal videos so far this year.